And he was talking about pistol grip yesterday. A lot of inquiry came in about the rifle. So hit you with this today. How am I connected to the gun? What am I trying to accomplish with the gun? Things like that. So to preface this, I think there's this sweet spot of pressure applied to the rifle that doesn't have a huge margin for error. Very, very easy to not do as much as you could. Very, very easy to do significantly too much. You are going to have to go to the live fire range and explore this stuff, right? But I'm gonna give you some stuff that I do that I kind of organically landed upon that a lot of people don't really talk about. I don't know if I've heard many people talk about it at all, actually. So first thing is like, if the gun is not set up to fit you, it's gonna be very, very difficult to run it at its maximum capacity efficiently. So what do I mean by that? Number one, man, buttstock position. Buttstock position, if you're a grown-up, right, like that's probably not where you need to be. What we're trying to do is get maximum leverage over the gun the most efficient way possible, make the gun fit us, make the gun fit our bodies, and all the way in just leads to a bunch of cramped up wrist stuff, and we don't get to utilize the rest of our muscle groups to engage the gun. Same thing goes for support hand. The farther I can get these hands away from my torso, the more muscle groups I can engage, the less I have to try as hard, if that makes sense. Buttstock position on the gun. So the old 90-90 shotgun rule works pretty good, man. If you don't know what to do, make a 90-degree elbow. Buttstock should be at or very close to the crotch of that elbow with your hand very relaxed on the grip. I can put a 90-degree trigger finger on the trigger, and I don't have a lot of problems with it. Something like that would be a no-go. In order to get buttstock connection, I'm gonna end up way up here, and that's just not gonna work out for me. So run that thing out and begin to explore. Once you've got it set up with the 90-90 rule, maybe a bump in, maybe a bump out, whatever, right? From there, where am I putting the buttstock on my body? A good cue is top of the buttstock needs to be at or below shoulder line. I am not a fan of this kind of crap right here. It's not that you can't have success with it if you designate a successful environment, meaning if all you ever do is shoot rifles at 10 yards and in, you can do basically all kinds of retarded stuff and still get hits, man. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being very aggressive with a gun at rifle distances. So this is, the 40, 60, 80, 100-yard line, standing unsupported, really getting after it. This stuff starts to matter a lot. Next piece is going to be the connection of my face to the buttstock. I think it's highly undervalued. When I'm mounting this thing, and I'll get into how I'm putting the pressure into it here in a bit, but when I'm mounting this thing, like, my facial connection is tremendous for me for stabilizing the backside of the gun. It kind of locks everything into me, as opposed to having a buttstock connection that is allowed to kind of modulate up and down depending on what's going on. If I take this face and I can lock it down into that, a large lion's share of the work that I'm putting into this gun has to do with a line that exists from the point of my shoulder to the cheekbone, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I say all that to say, if you're going to bring the optic height up, that's fine. Just make sure that you bring the face connection up with it. So if you want to get a cheek riser or something like that, Sun and Shadow, Magpul, LaRue Tactical, number of places are making these things. Fit the gun to you, man. You should be able to mount the gun with your eyes closed, right? Open your eyes and see your dot in the center of the glass. See your reticle in the center of the glass. If you can't do that and you're submarining below the optic center line, you need to bring the face up. So as far as the support hand, I like to do basically, where do I hold a pistol, right? So I normally would hold a pistol about right here, right? So if I put that away, hold my hands out here where they were, that's typically about where I want to hold the rifle. I like a slight bend in my elbow. I want that bend to be angled downward, not outward. So offline pressure being put into the gun this way steers the muzzle when I add pressure backwards. So if I try to pull backwards into the gun, you can kind of watch the muzzle try to deviate off to that support side, right? I don't like that. So I'm gonna swoop that elbow kind of down and just let it hang. Gripping the gun, letting it hang, and that linear pressure gets put back into the gun. I'm trying to put pressure into this gun, into me, in a straight line, in line with the bore, as parallel as I possibly can. It's another reason I'm not a big fan of holding on to vert grips. You're putting offline pressure that's down here into the gun, and it causes the muzzle behavior to be a little bit weird, and therefore translating into weird dot behavior. From there, what kind of connection am I trying to make, man? It's not as hard as you can pull. It's not that, but it is definitely aggressive pressure, right? It's not just holding the gun, it is mounting the gun, right? So what I always like to tell dudes, man, pretend like there's a pillow in between a tree and you got a buttstock up against that pillow. When you fire the gun, it's going to bounce around and be a little inconsistent in what it does. How would you affect that problem to find some tree? You take this buttstock and you squish it through that pillow until you found some tree, right? In between your clothing and the muscular skeletal structure that is the tree lies the pillow, right? So instead of just holding the gun up against you, right, find some tree. Does that make sense? From there, what am I doing with this shoulder? The shoulder is, I'm not mounting the gun here and then taking my face down to it. That's not what's happening. I'm mounting the gun here and I'm bringing with this shoulder, I'm shrugging this shoulder up to my face and I'm making connection through here. So that connection I get pressed into that like pretty doggone hard, right? So that's how I shoot a gun, yeah. And what I feel is a lot of pressure coming through this area right here that's pushing this way, like down and lateral. And it's conversely being met with pressure from this point in my shoulder right here, right? That's driving up and towards that face. So it's kind of like this linear line that's putting pressure and encapsulating that buttstock, right? That in conjunction with the rearward pull from the support hand, right? And it's not a tremendous amount of pressure from the support hand. I would assess it as somewhere around 70, maybe 60, 70% of like max effort is enough. All we're trying to do with that, with the support hand pressure, is keep the buttstock from shifting in our shoulder, right? The face structure and the shoulder, like connecting that piece, is going to keep the gun very, very stable as it's shooting, right? So I think a lot of it comes from that, not so much how hard you're pulling it into you, if that makes sense. So anyway, give you some stuff to kind of play around with. What are the goals, man? I think if the gun lifted and came back to what it was looking at, that would be a pretty good thing, right? So that's main mission number one. Whatever the gun does it do the same thing, and does it come back to what it's looking at? Be very, very, I don't like to say critical because that's a negative connotation, but be very, very interested in this, right? So if it comes back to anywhere but exactly what it was just looking at, right, within reason, we got work to do, right? I need it to come right back. As long as I can do that and I can maintain that same exact pressure as if I'm a fixture, not a human, right? Which is, you know, easier said than done. Then the gun will behave the same way every time. As long as the gun behaves the same way every time, it will allow you to stay focused on the task. As soon as something erratic happens or something unexpected happens, that causes your eyeballs, your vision will open up and try to resolve what's happening. Your conscious mind will wake up and try to start making the gun go places, which is not a good thing, right? There's a lot of negative that comes with that. So long story short, man, comfortable support hand pressure, gripping the gun, kind of elbow down, hanging from it. I'm pulling that gun into my my tree that is my muscular skeletal structure. My buttstock is set up to fit me. My riser is in play to give me a nice solid cheek connection, and that connection here and here is a really, really good money maker for you. Try that stuff out, man. That's what I got for you on Rifle Connection. JBSTrainingGroup.com. Bye.